Good day, everybody. Hope you're good today. So, thank you once again for joining us this beautiful Monday. So, we are on the analysis. We are live on Podium International TV and radio. So, you can also watch us. I think we're streaming on Yoruba Movement for Independence. So we're looking at analysis, the 1914 amalgamation of North and South of Nigeria. So we last week we premiered the program last week, and on Monday I took us back to the history of how Nigeria came to be from 1925 when Britain released the first gunboat to go and do their expedition. So we fast forwarded to when Lagos was colonized, the North and South were colonized, and we had three bodies: the colony, which is Lagos State, the Southern Protectorate, and the Northern Protectorate. The Southern Protectorate having been claimed from the Royal Niger Company. And then the Northern Protectorate having been gotten from the West African frontier forces created by Lugard to fight the emirs in the north, to push the French backward. So when we finished that, we looked at several other contents, which I'm not going to go back into now. We came into the document proper on Wednesday, and we looked at the introduction. So the introduction, the introduction talked about the preliminaries to amalgamation. So he talked about the North, the geography, the ethnography, the religion, and all sort of things that pertains to that, the size of the North, the size of the South, the population, the advent of British rule. He talked about it and the characteristics of the governors. So today, last week we concluded with the necessity for amalgamation, which is on page 6, I believe, of the document. So if you do need the document, you would have to request it. The document will be made available for you if you do need it. I'm going to give you the numbers to ask. I think the number is with Coach Tak, if she could help us display the number there for viewers who would be interested in the numbers. So we'll be going to page 7 of the document, necessity for amalgamation. Lugard has written 2 reasons why he amalgamated. For me, I'm very angry with the second reason he gave. But let's look at the main reason Lugard gave, which was finance. So everything boils down to money. So everything boils down to the money in your pocket. So what Lugard had done was he just thought, you know what? He wrote a memorandum in 1905. So we're going to go into that in the next, which is number 6. So he said in finance, the reason why he had amalgamated the country to get the North and the South together. So the first was British government have been funding the Northern government. So if you want figures, in this, what Lugard said was the amount up until 2011 had averaged $314,500 pounds, pardon me, 314,500. And what that did was only to police the North. So it's not that they are having to do any admin or create any job or create any road or build schools or build anything. So that money was just to secure the land. Now, if you go into Google today and type £1 in 1914, what would it be worth in today's money? In today's money, it gives you about £122.95. So £1 in 1914 would be worth about 122. If you multiply 314,500 in 1914 to today, British money, although we know that British pound to naira is gone berserk. But if you multiply it, that is 38.4 million. So imagine just using 38.4 million pounds just to police the North. Now we've seen banditry, we've seen terrorism in the North, which cannot be curtailed. So all these things were there. Lugard wrote it that from 1850 to 1900, those things had depopulated the population of the North. And that is what is starting all over again. So in 1912, it was lesser. They gave them less, £136,000. That was the only time that money from the British taxpayers to the North was less. Meanwhile, the South, we were making profit and having surplus. So Lugard just thought, okay, why not? If the South is making surplus every time and the North is making loss, and look, these two lands, they are only separated by a parallel line, albeit two rivers, River Niger and River Benue. Why not let's merge the two countries together? And that was the reason why they amalgamated Nigeria. So for those who are saying, oh, is this, is that? Now, Lugard brought his second reason. I really didn't want to go into that reason, but for some pertinent things which he wrote there, I'm going to go just briefly into that. So he talked about railway, that he had amalgamated the two countries because he wanted to build railway from the south to the north. I mean, that's ridiculous. We have roads linking Togo and Benin Republic together. We have roads linking Ghana and Togo together. We have roads linking Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. So you can't say, oh, we want to merge these two countries together because we want to build railway. That's utter rubbish. But what really happened, if you go down into the document, you will see he made mention of something that he wrote a long memorandum in May 1905. In 1905, he was the commissioner in the north. Welcome Zainab, thank you for tuning in. He was the commissioner in 1905. So from 1900 to 1906, Lugard was the commissioner of the Northern Protectorate. So he wrote a memorandum in 1905, May, to say, rather than for the British government to be spending British taxpayers' money on the North, which equivalent to today's money would be about £40 million every year, just for police, and they're getting nothing. Forget, they were getting nothing. So Churchill made an argument to say, let's do away with the North. Let's do away with the North. And he said, oh no, he knows what he would do to make it work. So you see the cacophony of this amalgamation, how they modeled everything and what. So when he wrote it, the High Commissioner of Southern Nigeria and the Governor of Lagos, they had also thought that, okay, why not let's merge this Southern Protectorate with the colony, which is Lagos. As of 1905, they were two different entities, completely separate. Lagos was a different entity. So Lagos on its own, in today's world, could be a country on its own, and it will do well, it will flourish well. And more so, among all these places, Lagos was the least populated. We will come into that when we go into the population. Lagos was the least populated at that time. Oyo State, Ibadan, was 10 times more populated than Lagos. But today, the reverse is the case. And Lagos is not able to cope with the enormous number of population that it has got. So if we then move, he said, they called him back. So what happened was Viscount Louis Harcourt, called Lugard in 1911 to say, see, what do we do? Churchill said we should do away with the Northern Territory. Let them go and live their life the way they want it. But you have written an article in 1905, about 6 years ago. So this was in 1911, that you can amalgamate these two countries. So how do you think you can do it? Now, the commissioner to the Southern Protectorate at that time, Egerton was vehemently against it. And not only was he against it, Egerton wanted Ilorin to be part of the Yoruba state. And his argument was that the people of Ilorin, we are already Yoruba-speaking people. How can you call them the North when they are already Yoruba-speaking people? So they didn't like it. The colonial office, which had become the foreign office, wasn't having any of it. So they had to punish Egerton. And they sent Egerton, they gave him a demotion and sent him to the Caribbean, I think in Barbados. And then they brought back Lugard, who had an idea and an ulterior motive. So Lugard came back from his assignment in Hong Kong. So he came back to England. Now, when he came back to England, Lugard did something very, very, he did something very funny in terms of the amalgamation, because he was doing it in terms of like, okay, you are amalgamated, but it's like a halfway house, which is described in this document, and I'll point it out so that we can see what he did. Because everything he did was later reversed in 1917 by the Secretary of State. So he said, on reaching England in April 1912, I was appointed governor of two separate administrations simultaneously. We're still on number 7. He was appointed as governor for two separate entities. So it's just like saying Lugard is the president of France and is also the president of Belgium at the same time, which even in major companies, you cannot be the CEO of one company and the CEO of another company at the same time. You would either pick one and leave one. So he described it, he said, I was appointed governor of the two separate administrations simultaneously. So he started work in 1912, and his task was to amalgamate them, the two together. And he wasn't given much time. He was given up until 1913 to come up with a solution, because Viscount Harcourt was under pressure. The British taxpayers' money was going deeply into the amalgamation. So when he returned in the following March, which is 1913, he then submitted his proposals for amalgamation in May 1913. They were accepted in British Parliament in September when he returned, and on January 1st, 1914, the new government of Nigeria, as set up by fresh letters, patents, and other instruments, were proclaimed. So that is what happened. So in May, he'd written a proposal. In September, they've accepted it, and in January, they've amalgamated a country. The natives were not consulted, which is your grandparents and my grandparents, or your fathers and my fathers. They were not consulted as to what is really happening. Uh, they were not asked if it was their desire to be amalgamated. They just found themselves in a new country that they knew nothing about. Lugard just thought, okay, you know what? I've written this previously. I think it would work, and he just started disseminating the papers. And once it was accepted, he just amalgamated the two countries, the two colonies together, and they became one polity against the wish of our present day people. And that is why a lot of our people today are now crying foul to say, we were not involved in whatever has happened in the past. We knew nothing about it, and we could not have acquiesced to all these, how will I call it, all these events, because it really failed our people. Now, I know Lugard and the British office, they did what they did for the sake of the British taxpayers. Now, what happened? Let's look back at the event. There was the fear of war at that time. And there was high tension in the world, just as it is today. So what is happening now is not new. There was high tension in the world that some things may happen. There may be war. And if there is war, it will be difficult for the British government to continue to subsidize the colonies. It will be, especially if they have to spend money in those troops to just go and protect the people. If they spend, Britain is spending over 40 million to protect a protectorate. No schools were built. Nothing was done. Lugard said it. He said they could barely build office even. That time, the headquarters of the North was in Niger State, was in Zungeru. So all this were going on in their mind, and they just thought, you know what? If there's going to be war, they need to cut back on so many things. And true to it, there was a war in 1914. And Lugard was Governor General from 1914 till 1919 before he left the position. So we now go to the nature of the task, which is number 8. If you have the document and you're following us on the document. So he said the area was about 332 400 square miles, and it was only connected by one single railway. So even the railway that was there and they constructed was going to take through from Lagos to Ibadan, well, Oyo State, Ibadan, up straight to Jeba, straight to what do you call it, Niger, and then straight to Sokoto. That was the only railway line they were aiming to build. And that railway line was the North were trying to do their own thing, and the South was also developing their own system. Now, having joined them together, there was a friction of how is the land tenure going to work that is going to be generally acceptable, because that was the time they now brought in this land tenure. Who owns the land? Who is going to own the land? For me, I don't think all those things should even be in debate, because the land belongs to the people and not the government. But today, by virtue of what Lugard did, they started taking the land and giving it to the government, which is not supposed to be. So they started bringing in land tenure. Now, if we go deep into the document, in some cases, you see that even trees we are giving name. Trees had their owner, especially the palm oil tree, because that was the main source of revenue of Nigeria. So the trees had name, but we'll get into that. So those were the things that happened before the amalgamation. And we'll go to part 2 of the document, which is the method of amalgamation, how he amalgamated, and what Lugard was thinking in his head during the time of this said amalgamation. So he said there was a I don't know whether to say a party in Zungeru, but he said in Zungeru and in Lagos. So I don't know whether the party was held simultaneously or the party was held differently. But the party definitely took place in the north, not in the south, in Zungeru. You can Google it. It's in Niger State. It's one of the enclave of the Boko Haram terrorists now in Niger State. So Lugard described that in this, when the event was going to take place, the Shehu of Borno and the emir, the Fulani emir of Kano. Now, mind you, Kano is an Hausa state. But at this time, the Fulani has succeeded in throwing out the Hausa people, and they are now ruling. So the Shehu of Borno, the Borno people, there are no Hausa people in Borno. Just for people who don't know, there are no Hausa clan in Borno state. What you have in Borno is Kanuri. It is 100% Kanuri people. They speak Kanuri. Majority of them speaks Hausa today. And they are sworn enemy. So if we're thinking, oh, all the North, they are not together. It is just the Fulani who is ruling each state that is making you think they are together. Because all the 12 northern states now, you see, they are all being controlled by the Fulani. And that is why the Kanuri clan are so angry that it is their land and the Fulanis are not supposed to be ruling them. And that is why you see that is where the first uprising started. That is where Boko Haram started in 2001, 2002. And when nobody was listening to them, that is when they started their deadly attacks in 2009. Because Boko Haram was actually started by the governor of Borno State. So Lugard said there was about 30,000 horsemen who came for this event. So majority of the people who had gone for the ceremony from the south, we are just spectators. Meanwhile, we have our own political head in the south, in the person of Alafin. We have Alake, we have Olowu, we have Awujale, and several other obas in the south. So we had all those people, and the North also had their own. So it wasn't like these people were consulted to say we want to amalgamate you. So look at where the problem started when I told us. The first time, what they did was they were going to the obas one after the other to collect signatures, sign a treaty. So they went to Oba Ilaro, signed a treaty. Oba Dosunmu in Lagos, they signed a treaty. Alaafin, they signed a treaty. Oba Ijesha, they signed a treaty. Oba this, they signed. After doing the Yoruba towns, they went to the mid Nigeria, which we call South. There's nothing like South. They went to Benin. Benin did not sign, the Oba of Benin did not sign a treaty. So if you don't sign a treaty, they will chase you out. The Benin people fought gallantly. But they defeated the Benin people. The Oba of Benin, Oba of Urame, he ran to Calabar and they put their own puppets there as an administrator, not an Oba, because you can't just bring anybody to become Oba. It was later they installed a new Oba after Urame died. So they went to Igbo land. So they were collecting treaties. After getting all this territory, they merged them as Southern Protectorate. Britain did not consult with the people again. Britain did not consult with their... So what Britain just did was they just started appointing their own administrator. So they appointed the administrator in the West, administrator in the Midwest, and Warri was their capital. They appointed administrator in the East, Calabar, and all these three people were doing their thing. So when it was convenient for them, sometimes they relate to the traditional rulers, but they're not holding them to anything. But there was nothing to be discussed. You are now British property. So they joined them with the North. So that was the amalgamation. Now, what is the role of the Governor General? You know, Lugard had two in one position. So it was the Governor General for the South and the Governor General for the North. Two positions he was given to run simultaneously. Now, this is what he said. He said the letters and the patents were particular to him. He just wanted that title of Governor General of Nigeria. He described it as the biggest of the British colonies. I don't think that would have been the biggest, because India was also equally bigger. And if we look today, India is still suffering. They're suffering from the what the colonial Britain did to them as well. They are the most. They've got the most people living with poverty until Nigeria overtook them in 2018. So they are all British colony. So Britain was actually taking more than it was giving. And I told us, I said, Britain took Lagos in 1861. They've got a consulate in 1852. We cannot hold them for what happened between 1852 and 1851. And they said they brought us civilization, they brought us development. And from 1861 to 1961, that's 100 years. But if our people were going to university, they came to university in England. There was no one university built in Lagos, despite it being Britain holding that place for 100 years or 99 years, which we could say. They didn't do anything until they left in 1960. It was not until 1961 that we had the University of Lagos. So now, the letter patent they wrote, just like Constitution. It's not Constitution. They call it letter. It's patent. So it's like when you open a company, they will give you a letter, and then they will give you some memorandum. In today, with the UK, it's like a template that they've already prepared. You can adapt it to whatever you want to, how you want to do it. So what Britain did was, in writing those letter patents, what they wrote and how Lugard did the amalgamation, and what Lugard did was Lugard did it in such a way that these two colonies, they were like halfway house. You have a governor general who sits at the head like the president. You will now have a lieutenant general, lieutenant governor general for the south, and lieutenant governor general for the north. Now, the person who takes decision for the south is the lieutenant general, governor general, and the person who takes decision for the north is the lieutenant governor general. So the lieutenant governor general of the south does not interfere in the affairs of the north. See what Lugard did here. Clever man. The governor general of the south, the lieutenant governor general of the south. So I will not use that. I will just use deputy. So the person who is his deputy in the south does not interfere with the affairs of the north. And the person who is the governor general of the north does not, the deputy does not interfere in the affairs of the south. Now, the second thing he did again in those letter of patents was that these deputies would act as though they are the governor general of their own domain. So they can attend to matters of importance and to any urgency. Are you seeing the cleverness of Lugard? So he just wanted the title that I am the governor general, but you are the ones doing the job. So that's what Lugard did for this domain. So Lugard made the deputies very powerful. And what that in essence gave him was it gave him back his time, so that he would spend 4 months in England. So he was rotating it. So if he spends 4 months in England, he comes to spend 4 months in Lagos or Zungeru, and then he goes back to England and spend another 4 months. So in a year, you probably spend 8 months in England and 4 months in Nigeria. The following year, you may have to spend 8 months in Nigeria and then 4 months in Britain. So that is how he was rotating his time. So if you imagine that if you're a president of a country, you have to be present 24. It's a full-time job. Even at the dead of the night on Sunday evening, you are attending to state matters. But what Lugard did was, when they drafted the patents, because he said it was particular to him, he just wanted the title of Governor General of the biggest British empire, biggest British colony in Africa. And that was what he did. So he gave the Governor General. Now, Lugard said, he said he could have created 7 deputies because the land is too big and it's too vast for just 2 people to be, or at least he could have even created 3. He said, number 1, there were no finances. Number 2, there are no offices that he could put the staffs. And that is why he created just 2 deputies. So 1 for the south and 1 for the north. And that was because Mr. Churchill, which later became the UK Prime Minister after the not after the Second World War, before the Second World War, or during the Second World War, but he came off immediately after the war, and Mr. Attlee became the next Prime Minister. So Mr. Churchill had already told him that do away with this note. They're giving us nothing, and we're just expending money, close to 40 million, just to safeguard people who want to kill themselves. Allow them kill themselves. The British taxpayers' money would not go into funding those activities. But Lugard did not agree. So what would be the duties of the governor? So what would be, but so what happened was in 1917, the Secretary of State had to cancel it because they didn't believe that it was a good idea that you have a governor general who is spending time in London, whereas the deputy is now overseeing the affairs of the country. So they said no, he had to come back because Lugard had his office, he had his secretaries, he had all his retinue of work in London, as though his office was in London and he was governing the London people. But he said it that the reason why he did that was because he wanted to be involved in the politics back home. So he wanted to be involved in the politics back home, and that is why he had to make a space for himself in London. So the duties was for the governor to direct the affairs of the native administration. So some things were going to be common. It's going to come together. So he needs a political assistant, and he also needs a private assistant. So his political assistant will be helping him in his political affairs, and his private assistant will be helping him in things that relate to administration. So, and he described to say, because there was telegraphic messaging, people could they could always get him straight away by telegraph. Then they sent quite a lot of telegraph, a lot of memo, a lot of transcripts, a lot of phone call had been around then. So there were phone calls, and then traveling then was still by sea. And you remember on our first lecture, I told us Britain was actually called the king of the waves. The king of the waves. And that was because Britain had over 200 ships at that time. So they dominated the sea. It was after the Second World War, they had a lot of fatigue, and almost 1/3 of their ship got sunk in the war, in the Second World War. The rest majority of them were decommissioned, and they were never built because Britain ran into heavy debt that they're still paying till today. Mind you, there is an ongoing conflict in Russia and what's it called? Ukraine, which is also triggering quite a lot of things globally that majority of us are not conscious of. Now, because of this crisis, many countries of the world, they've increased their defense spending. Mind you, they've always gone out with their defense retinue when they need to conquer land. So they've upped their game. Now, a lot of people will not know that Britain, as at now, is sent over 37 ships to the South Asian Pacific just for drills and everything. Because when these people fight, they take a long time to prepare. They don't just go out today to say, okay, I've got this. No, they take years and years without you suspecting. And that is why I say the Yoruba people, we are always sleeping. We are always sleeping. It is only when trouble comes that we say, Oguntide, Ejekadide. No, you have to plan for the security of your people. You have to plan for the future of your people. So just last week, the British government, and rightly so, voted 4 billion to build 200 ships, warships, to make sure the British people are always protected. What is the Yoruba government doing for us? Nothing. Our people are being slaughtered every day. People are being sacked away from their villages. And our obas, our Yoruba politicians, they are all silent. For me, that is an element of slavery. So before, it's not only the Yoruba people that were slaves. Now, they've now been able to enslave both the Yoruba people and their obas and their politicians. Thank God for the few who are still speaking at the risk of their lives. So that's the duty of the governor general who had created. So he talked about having junior staff to look at the secretariat and somebody as an ADC for the West African Frontier Forces. So he wrote WAFF. So that's what's it called? West Africa Frontier Forces we spoke about. So it was the frontier forces he used in fighting the emirs in the north that he used in conquering those lands. So for those who have questions, you can send your questions or comments. And then for the role of the governors, lieutenant governors, and the division of the country, which I've spoken about. So he explained that he splitted them into two because he didn't allow the north and the south to meet because he said he didn't want jealousy. The southern people did not agree to what he was doing. The north could care less because for them, it was an opportunity for the emirs to continue to enslave their people through feudalism. So, in as much as they saw extra support and extra ammunitions from the British government, for them, it served their purpose. They were not interested in building roads. They were not interested in building schools. They were not interested in building hospitals. So if Britain wants to do anything, that is up to Britain. So he talked about the population. And the population of the north, he said, was around 9 million. And the population of the south was close to 8 million. Well, I told you what he regarded as the north. Ilorin was part of the north, which is supposed to be a Yoruba state. So if they have counted people in Ilorin, perhaps maybe the population of the south and the north would have been the same. The landmass is different. We know that the landmass in the north are very vast. They've got more land than us in the south. But as at that time, I think they've got population then, but the south too, we were like at par. And the population of Lagos was around 154,000 around this time. Whereas the population of somewhere like Ibadan, I don't know whether to call it Ibadan because it's Oyo State then. So their population was over 1 million. So you see that the population of the Yoruba capital, which is Ibadan, was more than Lagos State, which is now the commercial capital. And Lagos grew that way because nearly 1 in 10 people in Nigeria lives in Lagos or have had dealings in Lagos previously. So a lot of people would, as a first point of call, up until the capital was taken from Lagos to Abuja, if you ask anybody from Sokoto, where are you going? Lagos. If you ask anybody from Kaduna, where are you going? Lagos. If you ask anybody from Calabar, where are you going? Lagos. If you ask anybody from Enugu, where are you going? Lagos. Even Ondo State, Lagos. Even Oyo, Lagos. So Lagos became that hub. But Lagos was not properly planned. because as we'll see in the later document, thank you, Madam Bosse. If you see in the later document, a lot of people thought apartheid was only practiced in South Africa. Apartheid was also practiced in Nigeria, very much. There were some many letters Lugard wrote, and in one of his private letters, he had described that he had to stop this colonial staff from attending to what was it called? Natives. He calls us natives, so I think that's even more honorable than calling us Negro. So he had to stop the staff from interacting with the native staff. They had to work in different buildings and they have to live in different areas. He said because the native children were more vulnerable to malaria. And once they have malaria, they can give it to their parents who pass it on to the Europeans. So there was more or less apartheid practiced in Nigeria during the colonial rule, but it wasn't as pronounced as that of South Africa, that says you can't come to this area, you can't school here, you can't, because in South Africa, the intention was to settle there and take the land. Whereas in Nigeria, when they came, they saw us there and it was just convenient for them to colonize us. But when it comes to administration of the land and administering, the colonial staff did not meet the native staff. They didn't even work in the same area. So he described one of the things he stayed in London to do was to start the unification of the laws. So he started bringing the laws to become a unified law for the North and for the South. And one of the things he did was in the South, our calendar year in the South followed the calendar year of Britain. So the calendar year of Britain. So if you read one place where he said in April, he was called, and then in May, he wrote a proposal. In September, that was in 2013, in 1913. In September, he read it to the House, they accepted it, and on January 1st, they did the inauguration. Now, the calendar year of Britain, up until today, is April the 6th till April the 5th of the following year. So by next month, Britain will actually start a new calendar year on the 6th of April. And on the 5th, this present financial year, so their financial year is different from the new year. Now, in Yoruba land or southern Nigeria, our calendar year was April till March. So April 1 till March 30th. More like that of Britain, only days we are separating it. But whereas in the north, they ran 1st of January till 31st of December. So those were the difference in the calendar. So he had to bring it together to now make it unified, so that the calendar year always starts from 1st of January till 31st. So it now became the same for the north and for the south. They had to now shift the time as well. The time zone, they had to now make it half an hour ahead of Greenwich Meridian, which is ahead of GMT. So Nigeria was half an hour ahead of Britain before. So it was later they just changed it to, let's just make it 1 hour for convenience sake. But at that time, they changed it to just half an hour difference. And then he had the duties and powers of the lieutenant governors. So they could make decisions as it pertains to their own domain. So the North and the South, we are not supposed to meet. The Governor General, a Lieutenant Governor General in the South is not supposed to discuss any matters, but he has power to take decision within his own jurisdiction. He doesn't even need to consult the Governor General, because as we all saw it, it was just particular to Lugard. Lugard just wanted the pleasure of being the Governor General. He just wanted the pleasure of holding that name. He just wanted the pleasure of, this is my domain. Or so that was the letter patent he got to say yes. So those things that were pertinent, that were supposed to be in it, to say. So for instance, it's supposed to write explicitly that if the governor is traveling, he should hand over to his deputy. So if the governor is not going to be around, which is why we encountered that problem during the time of Yaradua, because we've been using colonial rules, colonial law up till today. That's why when people tell us, oh, our problem is 1999 constitution, then they don't understand what happened in 1914 when we were amalgamated. Because that was the same problem. There was no provision to say if the Governor General is not there, then the deputy governor takes over. Because the deputy governor were like the head of their own domain. They were like the head of their own domain. And he also said he could have made it 7. But because there were no offices, there were no space, he made it 2. So Nigeria, as big as it is, could have been 7 countries. And they will govern themselves properly. And if we even look at it today, the population of Nigeria as at 1914 is 16, 17 million. The population of Lagos State is over 30 million. For goodness sake, can Lagos State not be its own country? Lagos State, as it is in terms of population, is bigger than Benin Republic and Togo put together. The population of Lagos is competing with Ghana. So Lagos State, by its own right, qualified to say they want their own country and they want to stand on their own. And they have everything to become a successful country. Meanwhile, even Lagos State, as of today, the money Lagos State is generating is more than what 24 states in Nigeria. And this was supposed to be a baby state at the inception in 1914. So all these things we need to understand, because if we don't understand, people will keep saying, oh, why is Nigeria like this? Well, from the beginning, they didn't set it to, it started from a trading post. From a trading post, it became a colony. From a colony, it became a protectorate. From a protectorate, it became I don't want to say unified country, an amalgamated enclave. So it's not a country, it's an amalgamated enclave. Because when you want to build a country develops from the culture and the people who are there, so that they can develop a system of government that would be all-inclusive for everyone. But when you invite people who are supposed to be the decision makers, you invite them as spectators to what you are doing, then you're not building a country. So Britain was actually not building a country. They were just building a trading trading and a resource post. So the central department under the direct control of the governor, we are going to be railway, the military, the big one, money, treasury, audit. So you're going to combine the two, because that's the reason why they join them together. The posts. So is it telepost? Let's say posts anyway. Your post office, postman. the telegraph, the judiciary, the legal system. But each lieutenant governor have their own legal advisors as well. And then there were customary courts in the south as well as in the north to deal with customary issues. There were magistrates courts. So it's when something is higher, you take it to either the High Court or the Supreme Court to deal with. So we'll just look at, I don't think there's much time today to look at the reasons for division, but he has divided it that way because of offices. So he did it because the way the North was composed and the South were also composed, the culture, last week Wednesday, he said, those of us in the South, we are pure Negroes, and those in the North, we are Fulani and other Negroids. And our culture, our tradition, our religion, we are different. And so that's why he had made sure the offices of the Lieutenant Governor Generals do not meet. And it was so up until 1966. The North and South did not meet. It was the military, which we'll come into later. I don't even think that will feature in this segment. So from 1914 to 1966, it did not meet. It was always separate because the Western region had their own premier, the Eastern region had their own premier, and the North had their own premier, and everybody was fine. No institution met, and the British planned to make it remain so for as long as it will bring peace. So at one point in 1966, the East said they want to go in January. In July, the North said no, they're not happy, they want to go. And they took power. And because the Yoruba has not revolted since that they want to go, the status quo remained. And this generation, we are saying we have to put it right. Or we have the opportunity to put it right. The East and the North, they've said they want to go. They did it by the barrel of gun. And we, the Yoruba people, are saying, no more. Nigeria, as it is, has become a death trap. Each region was not supposed to meet. But when we met, that grave mistake and the grave danger happened. Because ever since then, with the politicians, the international community, and everybody have been deceiving themselves that Nigeria is a country. You cannot have a country when the people who make up that country do not have anything in common or are not ready to come together to live in unity and peace. I think it is best for the people to just decide that this union cannot work. And the only best thing is for everyone to go their separate ways and rethink and rebuild their own nation. So I'm going to leave us here. We'll come into the reasons for the division, which I've spoken about. I'll look at the population of how the provinces that Lugard, we'll look at the provinces that he laid out, and then his reason for the divergence and the different laws that were there. Yoruba government, the Egba government, and the demand for government troops at Abeokuta and things, and how he was able. So as at this time, Egba was not part of Nigeria. Egba was just on their own, doing their own thing until Lugard told them that they have to come into Nigeria. And we're going to go into that details because Egbas were able to protect themselves. But we'll see, we'll analyze it. So when we get there, how did Egba became a part of Nigeria? You will see it. Because they were not part of Nigeria when Nigeria was amalgamated on the 1st of January 1914. So for those who have joined me today, I want to say a big thank you to you all. We'll catch up on Wednesday at the same time, where we'll continue with the analysis. God bless you.